Phillip Jackson, how we gonna stop this violence in Chicago, man?
It starts in many places. One of the things that we have to realize is that the police can't stop it. They don't understand it. They think that it's something that it's not. They're looking at it as though it's the same kind of gang violence that we had back in the 60s and 70s when we had these huge gangs and there was one leader who could call a truce. We no longer have that. It's very similar to a warlord state, and as you go from block to block, you might find a different mob, a different set, a different gang from block to block. And so the police, they're still fighting it the same way they used to fight it. The police can't stop the violence. They can't bring peace to the streets, so that's number one. Number two, the schools by themselves are not the solution. These problems, they weren't created in the schools. To a certain degree, many schools aggravate it because they don't know how to manage the children when they're in the school. But the schools by themselves, the police by themselves, they can't fix the problem. The people who can fix the problem are where the problem starts. It's in the home. It's with the parents. It's with the family. The family structure is the most important element in terms of fixing this problem. And right now, little or no resources, city resources, state resources, federal resources have gone into that area to reconstruct, to rebuild the family. Everything that's valuable in a community flows through the family. Education, economics, spiritual values, the lack of incarceration, all those things, they flow right through the family. And when the family is not there, the streets take over, and that's what we have. Number two, we got to get mentors into the lives of these young people. These young boys are looking at gangster, killer, thug, dealer as being their mentors and role models. That's because we haven't given them suitable alternatives. If we can give them a taxi driver, a plumber, bank vice president, engineer, we give them good role models, then that's who they will look at. Now, it's got to be systematic, and it's got to be in a way in which these young people realize that there's a path for them. So we're not just dangling, oh, look what you could have been, or look what you might be. But there's actually a path for them to get from where they are to all these professions, like in almost every other community in America, and it's becoming every other community in the world. Number three, we've got to teach our young people conflict resolution skills at an early age. We can't wait until they're like them young men out there, 18, 19, 20, and then we go up and say, stop the violence. That's not going to happen. We've got to reach these young kids when they're 2, 3, and 4 years old. We've got to immerse them in a culture of calm and a culture of peace, and we've got to make sure that they've got all the supports that they need, that when they get off the trail, when they get off the right path, that they get right back on that path. And then lastly, the violence that we're looking at today is greatly economic violence. It's just been announced, as everyone in the country knows, that the unemployment rate continues to rise. More black people are unemployed now than ever before, and they're projecting that the official unemployment rate for black people in 2010 is going to be over 20%. Now what that means is that the unofficial unemployment rate might be 50% or 55%. Easily right now in the state of Illinois, per Charles Schumer, Democrat Senator, New York, from the Joint Economic Committee study, he said that 50% of black men are not working in Illinois. With that being the case, the violence is predictive. The violence should almost be expected because it is now economics that is driving the violence. Kids are killing each other to try and eat. Kids are killing each other to try and get what they call business opportunities in terms of selling illegal substances. And so until we address those issues, the family, the mentoring, the conflict resolution, and also the economics, there's no way that even Washington will be effective. They don't have enough resources. They don't have big enough armies. This violence that we're looking at, the United States doesn't have a model for this kind of violence. Now, yes, we've had the Disciples and the Stones, and we've had the Crips and the Bloods. But that's not a model for this kind of violence. This violence is similar to the violence that happened in France, in the suburbs of Paris, about 3 years ago, when they had what they call the youth riots. The disengaged young men in Paris, similar to the young men we have here, young men who are disengaged from society. They're disengaged from their families, from schools, disengaged from churches. Young men who have no hope, who have no future. They came together and they rioted all around France, and it actually went into the city of Paris. That's a similar kind of situation that we have here, and we're not treating it that way. We're treating it like it's a gang situation. U.S. Attorney Patrick Fitzgerald sent us a message about a month and a half ago. He told Superintendent of Police Jody Weiss, there is no way that you can police your way out of the violence that's happening out here. He told Superintendent Jody Weiss, the best thing you can do is try and get these young men jobs and education. That's how you're going to reduce the violence. In the meantime, from the White House, they want to send more policemen. They want to send bigger guns. They want to send bulletproof vests for the policemen, helicopters, dogs. That's not going to stop the violence. There are people who call me and say that the more police show up, the more it seems that the violence escalates in certain communities. And so Black Star and many other organizations, whether it's Kids Off the Block, Teamwork Inglewood, American, there are so many great organizations that are out here doing this work. And so in a real sense, these organizations are the last line of defense between what some people call civilized society and this element that is going to basically clash with that society. And so we've got these small not-for-profits teetering on the brink of failing that are basically holding back or working with this population that no one else is working with. And unfortunately, they're getting almost no support from city government, from state government, from the federal government. And if that doesn't happen, if they don't get some help soon, we're not going to like what we're going to see out here.
Phillip Jackson, you would agree that, especially in the African American community, which we know we live here on the south side of Chicago and also on the west side, that we have a values gap between the upwardly mobile, the middle class African Americans, and the lower class African Americans. I say that with all due respect. The lower class African Americans have an economic problem, but they also have a values problem. Don't you agree? It's a values issue. Don't you agree?
I believe that between middle income African Americans and middle income Black Americans, they all have a values problem. It's not simply that one is better than the other. Right now, both groups, including upper middle income African Americans, have a values problem. They don't value family. They don't value education. They don't value creating their own jobs and controlling their own community. That's what the problem is. And it's being played right now, one group off against another. And we allow that to happen. We all have to buy into the same set of values. And I'm not saying that middle income values are good or low income values are good. I'm saying that the values that improve us as a people are good. And that's what everybody who is Black has got to buy into. And I mean everybody. I'm talking about Oprah, Bill Cosby. They're not exempt from this. Now they got lots of money and they pretend they're exempt, but they can be a part of the solution or they're a part of the problem as well.